All right, guys, it's finally here. The highly anticipated Zoo Vadis. Well, obviously, not really. But I do want to talk about Zoo Vadis a little bit. So, as you can probably tell by the modest shelf of board games behind me, I haven't quite reached the level of board game reviewer superstardom that some other content creators on YouTube have reached for themselves. So, I didn't garner any type of copy of Zoo Vadis for preview or review prior to its release on Kickstarter, which is in about 2 or 3 days, depending on the time that this video comes out. However, Rodney and I over at Caffeine and Cardboard have developed a bit of a relationship with the folks over at Bitewing Games. And if you're interested in some of their other stuff, we just released a video about their new trio of games, the Criminal Capers series, which includes Soda Smugglers, Hot Lead, and Poo Mafiosi, 3 awesome small box card games that you should definitely check out. The video on our channel and also over at the Bitewing Games website, and their link will be in the description. Big shout out to Nick, Kyle, and all of the other crew over at Bitewing Games. In any case, Zoo Vadis is also being brought to us by Bitewing Games. It is a game that's being re-implemented from an old Reiner Knizia game called Quo Vadis. Now, Quo Vadis was originally released in 1992. It did get a bit of a makeover from Mayfair Games a few years later, but it's an old game. In Quo Vadis, which means where are you going, you are competing with up to 4 other players for your place in the Roman Senate. You have your family of politicians per se, and you'll be making your way up tracks by garnering the votes of your opponents. What I mean by that is every route has little areas or rooms or parts of the government attached to it where you will be needing the majority vote in order to move on. And the way that you're going to be getting that vote is through mainly bribery, offering other players points that you've earned. And if you have the majority vote, you'll be allowed to move on to the next section and the next section and hopefully make your way into the Senate and gain the ability to win the game. Like Quo Vadis, Zoo Vadis is very similar. It is a race game where you are a family of animals, all of the same species, who are trying to make their way into the star exhibit of the zoo in order to be considered for final scoring. It's a race. It's also a pure negotiation game. And that's kind of where their similarities end. Like I said, Quo Vadis was initially published over 30 years ago. It's very dry. It looks bland. The theme is pretty pasted on for all intents and purposes, and it's very pure. There's not a whole lot to negotiate or deal with or consider in Quo Vadis. But Zoo Vadis is bringing a fresh take to that classic. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a negotiation game, especially a pure negotiation game. Some of my favorite games of all time include Santiago and Bonanza and Chinatown and Genoa. These are all very pure negotiation games where you're offering your opponents some benefit in order for them to let you do something, to trade something, to get something that's theirs in exchange for a future consideration maybe. Unlike all of those games, however, I have not played Quo Vadis, so I can't give a full take on what it's like. I have seen a lot of photos and done some research, and like I said already, it looks very basic. Some of those other games that I mentioned, they have a little bit more zest. In Santiago, you are competing in an auction at the beginning of every round to gain tiles. There's no auction in Quo Vadis. In Bonanza, you are trading beans of different varieties with other players and doing a bit of set collection at the same time to score the most points. There's no set collection in Quo Vadis. And I could go down the list with the other games that I mentioned, but Bitewing Games decided to give Quo Vadis a makeover and turn it into Zoo Vadis. And I want to talk today about why you might want to back it and also some reasons why you might want to reconsider that decision. So in Zoo Vadis, it shares some of those pure negotiation and race mechanics. You are a species of animal in the zoo attempting to make your way into the star exhibit through tactics and politicking and negotiation. However, there are a lot of differences. from Quo Vadis. As I mentioned already, there's the animal theme. It's very cute. You have the opportunity to be a family of rhinos or tigers or marmosets. There's no family differences in Quo Vadis. You are just the red player or the blue player or the white player, and there's not really any distinction. But in Zoo Vadis, you have the distinction not only of the beautiful artwork that's showing what variety of animal you are playing as, you also have special player powers. And there's the ability to negotiate a little more than just points, but you can negotiate more than just that. You have different animals that you're playing as, and every animal has a different special power. The moles can travel underground and take shortcuts. The marmosets are able to swap some of the laurel tokens that you'll gain along the way by traversing over those paths, and so on and so forth. Each animal family has its own special power, and the unique thing about the special power is you can't use it for yourself. I love that concept. That is always something that you're going to be trading away. It is quite literally a bargaining chip that you're going to be offering to other players in order to gain something from them, most likely their vote, in order to move on to the next area. There's also the peacocks, which are a nonpartisan group, so to speak, that you can bribe in order to gain their vote, or that you can move freely in order to block another player. And there's also the zookeeper. The zookeeper is a piece that you're able to move around the map as one of your actions, and you can travel over him freely. He's the only trusted human in the zoo, and he'll let you pass by without needing majority vote, though you won't gain the laurel token under him after crossing over that path. I will say my first impression of Zoo Vadis is that it looks amazing and very fun. As I said already, I love negotiation games. Zoo Vadis seems like in many ways it was made for me, and some reasons you might want to back it are the art and components are beautiful, absolutely stunning. Your animal meeples are these chunky wooden block characters that are obviously very nicely made. The board is beautiful, it's well laid out. The cardboard chips even are nice. I forgot to mention the deluxe edition, which is going to cost $69. Upgrades the game with thicker player screens to cover up your points, clay chips instead of cardboard ones to represent your money and your points. And I'll have to be honest, initially, when I was looking at Zoo Vadis, I wasn't completely drawn in the way that I am now. I loved the art, I loved the idea of the game, but when I found out that it was something that plays in 20 to 40 minutes, and the price point that it was at, I generally associate the length of a game with its cost. If I am getting a game that's going to last 15 to 20 minutes, it likely comes in a very small box, and it should be $15 to $25 depending. But the basic pledge to get the normal version of Zoo Vadis is going to run you at $45. Initially, I was put off by that price because of the length of the game. But the more that I've looked into it in preparation for this video, the more I am drawn in continually by Zoo Vadis and the care that went into creating it. As I mentioned already, the art is beautiful, and they're doing a service to a game that needed that makeover from Quo Vadis. They're bringing a fresh take on something that is a classic, and they're actually adding to it something that's difficult to do. Quo Vadis is a very basic game. It was designed that way for a reason. It can be difficult to dust off some of these old games and bring them back to life, but Bitewing Games, in my opinion, has done that in such a fun and fresh way that it's hard to deny anybody the right to back Zoo Vadis. But I do want to caution people at the same time. Although Zoo Vadis is a game of animals vying for their place in the zoo, I made the joke initially that Zoo Vadis looks like Zootopia, the board game, and in a lot of ways it does match that theme. But the cute nature of it, similar to Zootopia, is that there's some things going on behind the scenes that are a bit cutthroat. It is a pure negotiation game. After all, you'll be making deals with players. You'll be making future deals with players that aren't binding, and you may go back on your word. You may pull the wool over someone's eyes just to ice them out of the star exhibit. It can be a mean game like many other negotiation games are. So if you are not one for negotiation games, do not be fooled by the art, the beautiful and cute animal meeples that are on here, because the severity will still be there in Zoo Vadis. The beauty of this game may be deceiving. If you are on the fence about it because you might not like negotiation, I would caution you and tell you maybe this isn't a game for you. But if you love negotiation and the animal theme and the artwork and the versatility that Zoo Vadis is bringing back for this old classic in Quo Vadis, I would say absolutely back it and maybe get the deluxe version. When I was looking at some info on Quo Vadis, I found myself on eBay looking at some listings for the game. New in Shrink, it was running for $60, and another person had the same game listed at $19. And I imagine, I could be wrong, but I imagine that the person who had it listed for $19 is not a fan of negotiation. And even though they had this classic game in their clutches, they were looking to get rid of it because it's not a game for them. And the person who had it listed at $60 maybe understands how valuable it is in the right hands because they love it and appreciate it themselves, and it's worth $60 to them. Zoo Vadis also is an investment game, something I'm trying to coin as somewhat of a book club game. And if you're going to get your money's worth out of Zoo Vadis, because it's a 20 to 40 minute game, you're probably going to need to play it over and over and over again. Normally, when you lay out a game as big as Zoo Vadis is, you expect it to take 2 to 3 hours, and maybe that means the money that you paid is worth the experience. But Zoo Vadis is quite different in that way. The game is pretty big as far as what it offers you. But it doesn't play that big, and for some people that will be a major pro, and for other people that will be a drawback because they might feel like they're not getting their money's worth. $45 for a 20-minute game. For me personally, that would be a major benefit. I love the idea of having a comfort game. One of my comfort games is the Settlers of Catan and its many expansions. It's the game that got me into the hobby. It's a game I continue to play over and over again, but it's with the right group. Obviously, you guys can make your own decisions as with anything, but that's my take on Zoo Vadis. Let me know your opinion of it in the comments. Check it out on Kickstarter. Check out the other things that are going on at Bitewing Games and at Caffeine and Cardboard with the links in the description. Thanks for watching.